My name is Carlos Idibouo. I'm originally from Ivory Coast. That's where I grew up. I was born there and I grew up there. I grew up also in France in a small village and came back to Ivory Coast to pursue my studies at university. When I finished university, my first job was teaching. So I was teaching in before that I was already volunteering for the first AIDS organization called Ribbon Rouge. I got involved and in Ivory Coast, they didn't have HIV treatment at that time. So the first activity that we had was, to be with people who were dying and speak to them, making jokes, so at least they can feel a bit of happiness before they pass away. So my background in community work started that way. I was openly gay already with my family, but thinking of getting involved, in the community and doing some work in the LGBT community never crossed my mind until my friend met with me and had a conversation around how to put together. And the reason that he mentioned, really, got into me. We were working, or he was working first, within the HIV field, mobilizing, funding and advocating, for access to treatment already. So, but the thing is that the gay community, couldn't have access to those things. In fact, homophobia was quite high in the health industry, in hospital, in private clinic, and all of things. So people from the community, gay men specifically, who were getting diagnosed HIV positive, what they was doing, it was just go back to the village or hide themselves and die. So people were dying in the community as well, the same way people were dying in general in Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast at that time has a very high prevalence in terms of HIV. The Minister of Health at that time made a speech that, Ivorian people, you don't have to worry because we don't have HIV here. Gay people, spreading HIV, but we don't have gay people in Ivory Coast, so we don't have HIV. In fact, you don't have to worry about HIV. But in the meantime, people were getting infected and was spreading, in the country. We started, to knock at doors and have personal contact and speaking to people, and people were like, oh my God, LGBT organization, MSM. At that time, we were using a lot of the acronym MSM, Men Who Have Sex with Men. And people were freaking out. Some people were open to the idea, and slowly we put the community together and we started working on the bylaws. The first target that we thought might be very important was the Ministry of HIV, of Health, including HIV. And Ivory Coast was one of the first countries in the world that had a ministry focusing on HIV. So we said, okay, we wanted to talk to them and tell them that, okay, there is a gay community and people are getting diagnosed with HIV, but unfortunately they can't have access to hospital because of homophobia. So how can you be supportive? So there was a phase of recognizing, accepting that there was a gay community in Ivory Coast. That was the first phase that we had to fight and struggle for, the recognition. And the second phase was to get funding, and offer services to our folks in the LGBT community. Another very important step in the process of recognition is that Few months later, that we put together the organization, which name is en-Ciel Plus, in English Rainbow Plus. The minister organized a 1 week strategic plan. It was the national strategic plan, and we didn't get invited. So I got there and I got in the room, and people were like, "Oh." They start, talking to each other, what he's doing here, like we didn't invite him. And when I got there, it was right the time where they was talking about highly vulnerable population. And they were listing the vulnerable populations, and nobody mentioned MSM. So I just raised up my hand and I said, people now, especially the government, through the Ministry of Health and HIV, know that there is an LGBT community in Ivory Coast, and now we have an organization called en-Ciel Plus. And I told them, I'm not leaving this room, I'm not leaving this workshop if I don't see MSM on the list of vulnerable population. So by the end, they didn't do that right away because they had to meet. So at the end of the 1 week workshop, MSM was part of the list of vulnerable population included in the national strategic plan. That we were registered as one of the AIDS organization in the country. So we were officially being invited to other workshops, to other meetings. That was the first victory of not only en-Ciel Plus as an LGBT organization, but for the whole community. It was a victory for West Africa. It was a victory for the movement.